talking about the PPF model. So this is a key model that we'll look at in economics. It's basically looking at opportunity costs, and also we have a couple key assumptions. So here we're assuming this economy, so whichever economy that we're looking at, they produce cars and computers. So CPU is computers, cars is cars. So in this case, you're only producing two products. This curve is bowed out because it's showing a different opportunity cost at each point. So at each combination, there's a different opportunity cost associated with it. So we could do the math for this. If you watched the previous video on opportunity cost, you could do the math to see why it's changing. So for the main thing you want to know here is this is showing the potential of this economy. So this economy or this country, whatever it may be, can produce cars and computers. These are the various combinations that they can produce. Again, this is the PPF. So PPF stands for Production Possibilities Frontier. It's sometimes called the PPC. There's different ways to call it. For this, we will call it the PPF, Production Possibilities Frontier. So these are all the different possibilities that you can produce given your resources. Each country, each entity has access to different resources, whether it's a firm, an individual, or a country. So there's different combinations that you can produce. You can produce at this point, or this point. We'll call this point A, we'll call this point B, we'll call this point C. So at point A, we're producing only cars. Only cars, zero computers. Now, is this efficient? Yes or no? Based on this PPF, any point that is along the curve is efficient. Again, it's that country's choice or that entity's choice to produce only cars. The whole point of this model is looking at efficiency and if you're using your resources to its maximum potential. If you're on this point, if you're on this curve, you're efficiently using your resources. If you're not, that's not good. Okay, so points A, B, and C are efficient, no matter where they are. Even if you just produce computers, it's efficient. If you just produce, if you produce a combination of cars and computers, still efficient, as long as you're on this curve. The problem starts to happen when you're inside of this curve. So let's just say you're at point D. This line is showing us all of our resources used to its maximum potential. So land, labor, capital, other factors that help us produce our products. When we're inside of our PPF, we're inside of our potential. We're not producing at our potential. We're not using all of our resources to its maximum capability. So in this case, this is inefficient. Anything inside of the curve is inefficient. Again, you're not using everything to its maximum potential. Now the point in time when we're inside of our PPF is, for example, a recession. We have all the labor, we have all the capital available to us, but due to some other external factors, we're not able to produce at our potential. So again, that's when we're inside of our PPF in times of recession or when we're not using our resources to its maximum potential. Now, there's also another point that could be looked at is point E. This is past our potential. So at this point in time, we can't produce this combination. This is way out of our reach. There's a couple different ways to get there. One is through economic growth. The other is with access to more resources. And the last one is trade. So for this specific example, if we were to look at economic growth, it's every economy's goal to be able to ensure economic growth. Basically, you want to push this PPF further and further out. That's showing growth. Basically, you can produce more and more given your resources. That's the whole goal of any economy. If that's not your goal, you're not doing it right. Okay, so economic growth is going to push our curve further and further out. The other one we mentioned was access to more natural resources or resources in general. So if I were to say your country opens up its borders and allows more people to enter into the country, you're going to have access to more labor. Because you have access to more labor, this curve is going to shift out as well. Or if I say you conquer another country, you have access to more resources, land, labor, capital, water, natural resources, whatever it may be, this is going to push your curve out. Now let's say there's a huge storm that cuts down all of your factories by 50%. What do you think is going to happen to your PPF? So basically, when you see an external factor that decreases your land, labor, capital, or factors of production, as we call them, it's going to bring your PPF inward. Anytime it brings it inward, you're reducing how much you can produce. Your combinations have reduced. So for example, if I said there's a huge storm. Huge storm reduces labor. So labor affects being able to produce cars and computers, let's just say. So in this case, our curve is going to shift inward. Again, we have access to less resources. Now, if I were to say we have economic growth and our country is experiencing huge levels of growth, our curve would shift outwards. Now, it could be a complete shift or it could also be a partial shift. The partial shift is just going to be pertaining to whatever industry we're looking at. So if I were to tell you we have new technology available to us that's going to help produce more computers, what do you think is going to happen? The whole curve is not going to shift because I say specifically that we have new technology for computers. So we have new tech for computers. So basically, we're still going to produce relatively the same amount of cars, but we produce more computers. So this is a partial shift. This could go either way. If I said there's new technology for cars, we would produce more cars. If I just say broadly, we have more technology available to us in general, you're going to see a complete shift. Again, it's very vague, very broad. It's going to affect both industries. Okay, the last thing is we can get to point E through trade. Basically, if you're efficient at making something, somebody else is efficient at making something, and you trade for something you're not good at making, both parties win. You can consume past your PPF. This is why trade is so good. Every economist will agree that trade is good. There's very, very little, if any, that say that trade is bad. Again, when you have a comparative advantage, reference the last video, if you have a comparative advantage, you're producing the most efficient product by giving up the least amount. So again, opportunity cost, whoever gives up the least, they're the most efficient at producing something. So in this world, when you trade and you have a comparative advantage, it benefits the overall world consumption. So if you take a international econ class, you really dive into consuming past your PPF. There's analysis. I have a video posted on that as well, how to consume past your PPF, and there's different ways to get about it. So comparative advantage is always good. That's one of the basis of trades. If you're good at making something, that's what you should invest your time, energy, effort into. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys again soon.